Honourable Deputy Speaker, at the very outset, I want to record here my disappointment about the situation we have been placed in. The opposition, apparently the principal opposition party, is boycotting this debate. Now, we in the opposition, some of us who want to participate, are put in a difficulty because the chief opposition whip is simply sending a list of names, and we party leaders have to share equal time with everybody else. Now, I have been allocated a meager 8 minutes. Today happens to be the policy, we are debating the policy statement of the President. And party leaders will have to be given some substantial time to deal with important aspects of it. Now, I am asking your kind indulgence to see that I am allocated at least 15 minutes so that I can present at least some salient points which I feel is very important at this time, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I hope you... No, the problem is that the...
Honorable Hakim and the acting leader of the opposition, and give him 15 minutes. We have no objection.
No, the government
no,
can
just
be,
for the moment.
Can be generous.
Yeah, we are generous. 15 minutes to Honorable Hakim.
This is very irresponsible from the party.
Acting leader of the opposition.
No, we are put in this dilemma because there is nobody to take responsibility. I think you as the chair can take into consideration the fact that I am a party leader and then give me a little more allowance in my... Okay, thank you very much. Having said that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a policy statement by the President, however discredited he may be, is an important occasion for members of this House to critically examine the trajectory of the government for the remaining part of their government. At the very outset, I must say that now looking at one of the main dailies today, in their lead page they have an article called Ranil, his unpopular past alone may serve the nation's present. Now they say in a box statement, in his government policy statement to Parliament this week, the President repeatedly asserted that he will continue with unpopular decisions. He implied and also clarified in unmistakable terms how such unpopular decisions alone could prove to be the panacea for the nation's inherited economic ills, including those accumulated through his multiple innings as Prime Minister. I must confess that I have also been part of his government several times. So therefore, we also had to take part of the blame if the Prime Minister is to be blamed for certain unpopular decisions. But be that as it may, I see that in his statement there are a variety of things he is dealing with. He is starting off with having faced with, on the day he was making the statement, almost all the main trade unions were on a nationwide strike. Health trade unions, water, electricity, everywhere. The country came to a virtual standstill. That was against the tax policies of the government. And therefore he understandably took a little time trying to explain the rationale and the need for having set such threshold of 100,000 rupees for taxable income for everyone in the government sector included. So that has still become a serious debating point, and let me not go into that because we have other problems as well. Now I would like to quote this portion of his speech. Inflation rises during an economic crisis. The price of goods increase. Employment is at risk. Businesses collapse. taxes increase, it is difficult for all sections of society to survive. However, if we endure this hardship for another 5 to 6 months, we can reach a solution. If we continue in this manner, we will be able to give an additional allowance to public servants in the 3rd and 4th quarters of the year and give concessions to the private sector. Now, this is a very, very tall order. I don't know from where, with what figs of imagination that the President thinks that he can give some additional allowance in the 3rd and 4th quarter of this year. Then he also says the public would become prosperous with income sources being increased. The interest rate can be reduced. In another 3 years, the present income can be increased by 75%. Now, these are all, very tall, imaginative figures. I believe whatever he says, now we will leave it to the test of time whether he is able to achieve all this with the trouble he is faced with. Now, on the very day he was making a statement, there was this history repeating itself outside the precincts of this parliament with thousands of Buddhist monks coming in procession, burning a part of the constitution of this country, the 13th Amendment, and creating a massive furor outside the chambers of this house. Now, a while ago, we heard none other than Mr. Dharmalingam Siddharthan, a former militant himself. He spoke in Tamil. I don't know how many listened to his speech. He made a fervent appeal. Now, who is Mr. Dharmalingam Siddharthan? He is the son of a former member of parliament, Mr. Dharmalingam, for several years in the north of the Federal Party. He himself was killed by militants. Mr. Siddharthan took to arms. He gave up arms because of the expectation that the devolution scheme that was promised would finally be fulfilled somehow. If you have listened to his speech, the frustration that he was talking of, he and I entered parliament together way back in 1994. Right? And now we are finding the same things repeating ever since independence. This started in 1956. Mr. S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike also paid with his life. That too was a bullet that pierced his heart was also by a Buddhist monk. Let us not forget this. Right? Now we are finding the same old history repeating once again. My only plea, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that I don't think I would fully stand with the President if he is, as he says, as the executive president of this country, he is bound to implement the Constitution. What he is attempting to do is to implement what is in the Constitution. And he of course, today, Mr. Sumandran, yesterday in his speech, has in a sense, criticized the way in which he is saying certain things in a tongue-in-cheek manner. Now, what he says is, considering all the facts, we expect to devolve power within a unitary state. However, I wish to reiterate the fact that has been emphasized on many occasions. There will be no division of the country. And Mr. Sumandran himself endeavored yesterday, several times over, to say that they want and they also stand for an undivided country. Now, why are we making such a big fuss about the modality of devolution. My party, Mr. Deputy Speaker, was the only party which contested in the Northeast from among the other than the Tamil parties, because every other party boycotted it. Of course, UNP contested because they were in power, and we became the official opposition. We entered the first Northeast, temporarily merged Northeast Provincial Council, and we contested the election under protest against the merger. We said the merger was done without the consultation of the Muslims, who comprised almost 1/3 then of the eastern province. And subsequently, Supreme Court has, for reasons best known to the Supreme Court, have decided that the Northeast merger is untenable and that it is unlawful, and have now demerged it. Now, yesterday, some parties are trying to create this bogey again, pointing to the provision that was there in the Constitution, Article 154A(3), that exists that if two provinces want to amalgamate with each other, Parliament may approve. Now, can we ever expect a Parliament with a preponderant majority of Sinhala Buddhists in this country ever endorsing such a resolution? So why are we creating this unnecessary fear and a bogey to once again bring these devils out of the bushes? Now, this is what I am saying now. It's very unfortunate whenever we are able to achieve something, whenever a head of state is trying to, I don't expect the president, I don't think with the type of discredited mandate he has at the moment, that he'll be able to achieve all these lofty ideals. These may be mere pious words alone, but then see the amount of trouble that some of these elements. Beg your pardon? Thank you very much. So this is very unfortunate. Now there is also, yesterday, I see some parties are trying to blame our neighbor India for the problems we are faced with. I am not holding a candle to Indians today in this house, but let us be very frank. Now, in this economic situation, see the generosity of the Indian government. Almost $4 billion were given to us. Now, we forget all that. Now, we are trying to blame India for having unnecessarily poked their noses into this country's integrity and sovereignty. Now, if you realize, at that time, in 1987, the situation was such that they faced problems everywhere. Now, we also had, if India wished, when they sent IPKF, several thousands of soldiers, Indian soldiers died in this country to preserve the integrity of this country. We have a massive monument outside Parliament in these grounds to pay tribute to the Indian soldiers who paid with their dear lives to protect the integrity of this nation. I remember when we became the official opposition in the Northeast Provincial Council, we too had to be armed. Our members had to be escorted to the council sessions because there was a threat by the LTT. Now, LTT threat is no more. The threat of country being divided through an armed struggle has come to an end. The principal opposition party's principal spokesman says that we want devolution within an undivided country, and then still you say you all are traitors. Even the youngest parliamentarian, Mr. Sanakyan, is being called a traitor today. Because he so eloquently, both in Sinhala, Tamil and English, is letting the country know the aspirations of the Tamil people. At least they must have a right to talk about the aspirations. Now, of course, the president in his speech is making a valiant attempt to talk about his former colleagues, Mr. Saumimurthy Tondaman, and then Mr. A.C.S. Hamid, and saying that he had been with them at that time. And they are both, for the Indian origin Tamils as well as for the Muslims, there are problems that he understands them, he intends to solve them. Well and good if he does so. But that even those pious intentions, however pure they may be, now with this type of people who are, now they say, there is an English poet who said, patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. දේශප්‍රේමීත්වය කියන්නේ තක්කඩින්ගේ අන්තිම තිප්පොලයි කියලා ඉංග්‍රීසි නවකතා ලේඛකයෙක් කිව්වා. ඔව් ජාතිවාදය. ජාති මම කියන්නේ patriotism. නෑ. Nationalism, patriotism. These are all done in the wearing the robe of nationalism. Right? Are you trying to protect the country's integrity, or are you trying to unnecessarily divide this country? This is our question. So, I can go on talking about this. Now, the main problem, now we have faced an Aragalaya last year. The main theme of the Aragalaya was based on the nepotism and this false patriotism. The very people who fought in Galface, who brought this government down to its knees, opposed nepotism in the name, nepotism and corruption in the name of patriotism. And with, now that the new president is at least trying to realize the follies of the past and trying to in his so-called pious words, is trying to do something, then once again the bogey has started. So I can only say, if this is the way in which we are going to progress and trying to shout down and torpedo all intentions of well-meaning political leaders, finally this country will never have a future in such a situation. Thank you.